Welcome to Soul Axis. Nothing is ever lost. It's only stored.
London doesn't sleep, it only dims, especially at Helixbridge Neurotech, a startup with deep pockets who funded the research of Dr. Sarah Halvek. She was the biggest bang for their buck. They needed a brilliant research scientist to drive down costs and latency issues in their eventual line of high-end boutique prosthetics, and she needed a lab with less restrictions. Born in a fishing village just outside Ålesund, the long winters kept her more indoors than out. Her father was a respected mechanic. Meticulous and detailed, villagers often claimed he could strip the engine out of a fishing vessel, rebuild it, and have it running like new before the tide went out. Her mother was the charge nurse in the emergency department of their local hospital, a woman who could remember the chart of every patient on the floor from presentation to discharge. Learning to both read and speak earlier than most children, Sarah excelled at everything presented to her hungry mind. By the time she was 10, she was finishing coursework years above her level. By 12, she was sitting in on university seminars broadcast online, typing corrections into the professor's public notes. At 14, the University of Oslo accepted her into its accelerated program on a special exemption clause rarely used and almost never applied to children. She devoured entire fields. What took others years took her months. Biomimetics, quantum computation, prosthetic engineering, neuroinformatics. Professors joked that she didn't take exams, she merely confirmed them. Her notebooks were filled with dense, cryptic diagrams, dendritic trees mapped against harmonic waves, cortical circuits plotted over vibration spectra. By the time she was 23, she held advanced degrees in computational biophysics and neurosystems engineering. The city outside the lab window blurred into a haze of sodium-lit fog, muted sirens, distant traffic. Inside the research wing, everything was harsher and brighter: white-blue fluorescence, the antiseptic scent of solvent, the quiet, insistent hum of machines. Sarah sat alone at her workstation, one leg tucked beneath, her foot long asleep. She slouched forward, snacking on popcorn, her face almost hugging her monitor. From a distance, one would imagine she was engrossed in a horror movie. Instead, it was a stream of data. The ALL, animation lead link, was a tangle of filaments that reacted to quantum vibration wrapped in a superconductive latticework. It blinked from a workbench across from her. Wires ran to it from the halo around her head. It was the next generation in linking prosthetic limbs to the neural network of the user. She and Dr. Elias Wren, a brilliant researcher 12 years her senior, had built it over the past 18 months. It was ready to test, if they could overcome a latency issue. It was 3:17 a.m.
Go home, kid. It's only noise. We'll look at it tomorrow with fresh eyes.
Elias had suggested 10 hours ago, rubbing her head like she were his kid sister as he went home for the evening. She and Elias were close and had worked together for almost 2 years, from inception to prototype. While this was her lab and she was technically his boss, she admired Elias and often followed his suggestions and ideas, especially when it came to the outside world. The lab was home. The world was alien to her. She'd solved 90% of the latency problem. It was the last 10 that kept her here tonight, mentally and physically exhausted, head aching, eyesight blurred by screen burn. She ran the trace again.
Motor intent. Clean. Cortical echo. Within thresholds. Synaptic microbursts. Perfectly synchronized.
Then, there it was. A harmonic buried beneath the expected waveform. So faint it should have vanished under noise. So regular it couldn't be noise. Sarah frowned, leaning closer, waiting for the next cycle for it to erupt again. She'd seen this anomaly twice before tonight, and dismissed it both times. Like Elias assured, it was noise. Still, something pulled at her curiosity, and a decade of working with data taught her that the things you dismiss twice are probably things that matter. It erupted again, and she magnified the subquantum signal, studying a pattern in the vibration. Collapses of observation set against entangled data. The harmonic resolved into a lattice, beautiful, organized, impossible. Not random. No instrument drift. It pulsed. Her breath caught. Her pulse skipped. She reran the scan. The harmonic responded, shifting in places that corresponded not to motor activity, but to changes in emotional telemetry. A spike in her nervousness, a flutter of hope, a shadow of uncertainty when she'd ended the earlier testing session. It echoed memory. It echoed feeling. It echoed something deeper than either. Sarah's hands hovered above the controls, trembling slightly despite years of hard-practiced clinical calm. This wasn't just a signal. It wasn't latency. It wasn't a flaw in the lattice. This had structure. A shape beneath consciousness. A vibrational identity pattern buried under neural noise. Something alive. Something unique. Her thoughts raced, fast, precise, frightening in their implications. Sarah forced herself to lean back from the monitor. Discovery was intoxicating, thrilling enough to fool even a disciplined mind into seeing patterns where none existed. She had vowed years ago that she would never be that kind of scientist, the kind who fell in love with an anomaly before proving it deserved affection. She rubbed her eyes, exhaled slowly, and reset the interface.
Replication first.
The all array hummed obediently as she initiated a fresh calibration. Clean baseline, new timestamp, fresh buffer. Emotion telemetry cleared. She disconnected the previous trial entirely, swapped the quantum filament bundle, purged the caches, then rebooted the cortical harness and ran the motor intent sequence again. It was a simple set of imagined movements, nothing emotional, nothing that should produce deep resonance. The data streamed in. Normal. Normal. There. That familiar harmonic pulsed again. She adjusted the subquantum signal. Her breath hitched. It came into sharper focus, a cascade of memory, ego, and emotion, all emanating from a singular source in the noise, however faint. Her rational mind leapt to explanations. Equipment glitch, quantum bleed-through, interference from the EEG coil, unresolved calibration drift. She killed the test, rebooted everything again. Another fresh restart. Her hands were shaking, part exhaustion, part exhilaration. She needed to pee, badly. She quickly built a model around the data, refining what she'd measured. She ran the scan. It appeared again. And this time, it changed. It wasn't performing emotional tasks, nothing but neutral motor imagery patterns, but the harmonics subtly warped when she spoke. Not loud, not emotional, just a simple instruction.
Flex your hand.
The harmonic fluttered. Responded, not to the motor command, but to Sarah's voice. Sarah froze. That was not neural activity. That was not mere cortical echo. It was something else. Something listening. She needed another subject. Elias arrived at work earlier than usual. It was Friday, and he had a date night planned with his wife, so he was leaving early but still wanted to get in his 10 hours. It was 6:30 when he walked into the lab. He pulled on his smock and began to button it. He looked up and was met by the glassy stare of exhaustion.
No way you got here earlier than me.
Sit down.
Sarah demanded, pulling him toward the testing recliner. She threw the handle and Elias tilted back. She tossed him the halo.
Put this on.
Confused, he sat motionless, almost afraid to move. Finally, he offered.
Good morning.
She sat at her station, jabbing keys on the keyboard.
Let me reset the model. I need to get a fresh baseline. Elias, put the damn halo on.
Elias finally complied. A few keystrokes later, and she was staring at the screen, waiting.
How's Claire this morning?
She finally asked, staring at a hastily programmed GUI.
Fine. How's Sarah this morning?
Implying the crazy lady before him was clearly not his coworker and friend.
There it is. There's a ton of information here. Look, motor functions, memory, emotion, all branching out like a network from this one Signature. When I altered the subquantum signal,
Sarah, it's only noise. It's apophenia, kid. Go home. There's nothing there. You need to be working to reduce the noise so we can get better latency, not be listening to it.
your signature is different from mine. I wonder if each person is unique.
She started typing again, ignoring him, adding lines of code. Elias threw the recliner handle in the other direction, popping up from it.
Sarah, this is nonsense. Go home and rest. I'm going to re-attenuate the lattice to try and reduce the noise. I think it will help with latency.
He reached for the halo to remove it. Sarah grabbed his hand and pointed with the other.
Look at the screen.
It's noise, Sarah.
Look at the noise, Elias.
He looked. It was a jumble of data. He shook his head in confusion. She disconnected the halo, the cortical harness, killed the system, cleared the cache. Typed some more code. She rebooted, this time using the new baseline set by Elias.
Flex your hand.
The signature followed the instruction. The motor intent waveform spiked as expected, but the harmonic returned with a faint rise in emotional telemetry. It had felt slightly embarrassed at imagining such a simple motion in front of a researcher it respected. Elias collapsed into Sarah's chair at her workstation. Sarah grabbed him by the shoulders and shook him violently.
Look!
Sarah saw the emotional shape. Not the feeling itself, but its signature, its geometry. A quiet, pulsing contour of mild self-consciousness. Elias stared at the screen. He dropped the stylus he didn't realize he'd picked up. Sarah was shaking him again. He tried to focus on keeping his head still so he could see the data stream.
This is impossible.
The harmonic mapped emotion with more clarity than any EEG, fMRI, or diffusion tensor imaging ever could. It was mapping personhood.
Again.
She asked the signature to remember something. Anything. She was non-specific, so she didn't prime the emotion. The harmonic didn't pulse this time. It bloomed. A layered, delicate vibrational lattice spread across the subquantum field, unfolding like a tiny aurora. Complex, ordered, alive.
This isn't brain activity. This is meaning.
They both sat there in stunned silence, staring at a structure that no instrument had ever shown before, that no theory had ever predicted. A resonance that reflected memory, ego, and emotion braided into a pattern that held steady regardless of the neural noise around it. Neither of them could look away from the rhythmic flicker on the monitor. It pulsed gently, a heartbeat speaking in math.
What are you?
The waveform pulsed again, synchronizing with the subject's faint recollection of a childhood song, data she should not have been able to measure at this depth. Ego data cascaded alongside emotional telemetry. A fingerprint, a blueprint. It had emotional architecture, memory contours, ego scaffolding, skill reinforcement pathways. It was an informational resonance that mirrored the self. This was the signature of consciousness, the subquantum identity lattice that had been hiding beneath neural noise since the dawn of the human mind. Sarah wiped a tear from her face while Elias sat dumbfounded. Tomorrow they could change the world. Today, they needed to run more tests. If this story reached you, it means you're already connected. Subscribe to remain in the system. Like and share to strengthen the signal. New episodes are always compiling. We'll see you in the next iteration.